In 2026, the richest people you've never heard of are running businesses so boring you'd scroll right past them at a strip mall. No app, no pitch deck, no investors in Patagonia vests. Just a building, a machine, and a bank account quietly filling up while everyone else chases the next big idea. Here's the part that stings a little. You've probably driven past 5 of these businesses this week. You didn't even slow down. Because we've been trained to think wealth looks exciting. Wealth looks like a startup logo, a Lambo in a driveway, a guy in a hoodie ringing the NASDAQ bell. But real wealth, the kind that survives recessions and doesn't need a personality, usually looks like something you'd never post about. So today, we're breaking down 5 businesses making ordinary Americans quietly rich in 2026. Boring on the outside, brutal cash machines on the inside. And by the end, you'll understand the one trait every single one of them shares and why that trait matters more than the industry itself. Let's start with the one that sounds like a joke. A car wash. Picture the most forgettable building on any commercial strip. Beige walls, a spinning brush, a guy vacuuming his floor mats. Nobody's dream business, right? Wrong. One single automated location, fully unmanned, is pulling in $40,000 to $60,000 a month. That's not revenue for a year. That's revenue for 30 days.
Here's why it works. A car wash doesn't need a sales team. It doesn't need a charismatic founder. It needs cars, water, and a card reader. Nobody's making an emotional decision about which car wash to trust. They just want clean and fast. That's the secret. When a decision is boring to the customer, it's incredibly profitable to the owner. Think about the last time you picked a car wash. You didn't research it. You didn't read 4 Reddit threads. You saw one, you had $5 in loyalty points, you drove in. That absence of thought is exactly why the machine behind you just made money without a single employee smiling at you. And here's the part nobody tells you about the money itself. A lot of these locations run on a monthly membership, $20 or $30, charged automatically whether the customer shows up or not. So even on the slow, rainy Tuesday when nobody drives through, the bank account still grows. That's not a sale, that's a subscription wearing a car wash costume. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. If a machine can make $60,000 a month cleaning cars, what happens when you apply that same idea to something even more mundane? Laundromat. Some owners are clearing $1.8 million a year. Nobody dreams about owning a laundromat. Kids don't grow up saying, "I want to run a room full of washing machines." That's exactly why it's underpriced attention and overpriced opportunity. Here's the psychological trap most people fall into. We equate boredom with low value. If a business doesn't excite us, our brain assumes it can't be lucrative. But your brain isn't calculating cash flow, it's calculating dopamine. And dopamine has nothing to do with your bank account. A laundromat doesn't need to be loved, it needs to be open. Machines don't call in sick, they don't ask for a raise. They just run, quietly, at 2 a.m. while the owner sleeps. But here's the twist most people miss. The real money isn't even the wash and dry cycle. It's the fact that once the machines are paid off, almost every dollar after that is closer to pure profit. The building becomes a printing press disguised as a chore. Think about how differently we treat this compared to, say, a restaurant. A restaurant needs a chef who might quit, a health inspector who might show up unannounced, a Yelp review that can tank a Friday night. A laundromat has none of that drama. Its biggest risk is a broken coin mechanism. Boring risk is cheap risk. And cheap risk is exactly what lets the margin stay this fat. So we've covered 2 businesses that run on machines. But what if the machine isn't a piece of equipment? It's a skill. That brings us to fractional CFOs. One person, working part-time, charging $2,000 to $5,000 a month per client across 8 to 10 clients at once. Do the math for a second. Even at the low end, that's $16,000 a month for work that isn't full-time for any single company. Here's the line that should stop you. I'm basically the finance chief for 10 different companies at the same time. That's not a job title, that's leverage. Small businesses can't afford a full-time chief financial officer.
but they desperately need someone to tell them if they're actually making money, or just moving money around and calling it profit. That gap between we need this and we can't afford this full time is where fractional CFOs live. Notice the pattern forming here. Car washes and laundromats made money by removing the need for a decision. Fractional CFOs make money by removing the need for a full-time hire. Different mechanism, same principle. Find the gap nobody wants to fill and stand exactly inside it. Here's the part that should really bother you. A full-time CFO can cost a company $200,000 a year, sometimes more, once you add benefits and equity. A fractional CFO gives that same company real financial oversight for a fraction of the cost, and gives themselves 10 income streams instead of one employer who could lay them off on a random Tuesday. One side gets safety, the other side gets leverage. Both sides think they won. Now let's talk about the business that sounds the least glamorous of all: junk removal.
Yes, literally picking up other people's trash. And yet, some operators are scaling this into $3 million a year. Here's why this one hits different. There's a certain embarrassment most people feel about dirty work. We're taught to chase businesses that sound impressive at a dinner party. Junk removal doesn't sound impressive. It sounds like something you do until you find a real job. But therefore, that exact embarrassment is what keeps competition low. Most people won't even consider it, which means the few who do face far less competition than someone opening yet another coffee shop or clothing brand. Think about the emotional need being solved here. It's not really about the junk, it's about relief. Someone inherited a house full of a parent's belongings and can't face sorting through it. A landlord needs a unit cleared in 24 hours. A family is drowning in clutter and just wants it gone, today, without judgment. You're not selling hauling. You're selling the feeling of a problem disappearing. And people will pay a premium to make discomfort vanish quickly. That's why a two-man crew with a $15,000 truck can quote a job at $400 for what looks, on paper, like an hour of lifting. The customer isn't paying for the muscle. They're paying to stop staring at the pile in their garage every time they pull in. Charge for the relief, not the labor. And the same 3 items suddenly justify a much bigger invoice.
So now we've seen 4 businesses that are almost aggressively unglamorous. Car washes, laundromats, behind-the-scenes number crunching, trash removal. But here's a curveball, because not every boring business is small. Some of them are boring on a massive scale. The Boring Company. Yes, that's the actual name. Elon Musk's tunnel-digging venture, boring both literally, as in drilling through the earth, and figuratively, as in watching dirt move, is not exciting. It's the perfect punchline to end this list on, because it proves the theme isn't about the size of the business. It's about the nature of it. Whether you're one person with a mop bucket or a company boring tunnels under cities, the same law applies. Unsexy work, done consistently, compounds into serious money. Musk could have named it anything. Something sleek, something futuristic, something that sounds like it belongs in a sci-fi trailer. Instead, he picked the one word guaranteed to make people underestimate it. That's not an accident. That's the same instinct every laundromat owner and every car wash owner already has, whether they'd put it into words or not. Let the name sound sleepy, and let the balance sheet do the talking. So here's the psychological insight that ties every single one of these together. Most people choose businesses the same way they choose what to watch on a Friday night, based on how it makes them feel to tell someone about it. We want the version of success we can announce. But money doesn't care how a business sounds at a party. Money only cares whether a real problem is being solved, repeatedly, for people who are willing to pay to avoid solving it themselves. Car washes solve, "I don't want to do this myself." Laundromats solve the exact same thing. Fractional CFOs solve, "I can't afford to hire this myself." Junk removal solves, "I don't want to face this myself." Even a tunnel company solves, "I don't want traffic to slow me down." Every single boring business on this list is, at its core, selling other people's avoidance back to them as convenience. And here's the aha most people never connect. The more boring a business sounds, the fewer competitors are willing to endure it, which means less competition, which means fatter margins, which means the boredom itself is the moat. So if you're sitting there in 2026 waiting for a genius idea to strike, that might be exactly what's keeping you broke. You're waiting for exciting, when the money has been sitting in unglamorous for years. There's a reason for that gap between what looks smart and what actually pays. Social media rewards novelty. Your brain gets a hit of dopamine from something new, something clever, something you've never seen before. But a bank account doesn't reward novelty. It rewards repetition. It rewards the same transaction happening over and over, quietly, for years, without needing a single viral moment to keep working. The businesses that win long-term are almost never the ones that would make a good highlight reel. Here's your one takeaway.
Stop asking what business would impress people. Start asking what business would people pay to avoid doing themselves. That single question is worth more than any pitch deck you'll ever write. Because the next time you drive past a car wash, a laundromat, or a guy loading a truck full of someone else's junk, don't look away. That's not boring. That's just wealth, wearing a disguise good enough that almost nobody bothers to look twice.